I tend to lurk in a lot of streams on Twitch and in a lot of Splatoon communities on Discord. I'm not weird about it, I promise, I just really enjoy the game. Alright, maybe that wasn't the best way to start a video titled Awareness, but the point I wanted to make is that I'm always interested in how people play and enjoy Salmon Run. So whilst I was doing the lurking thing, I read some comments from players discussing their randos, their freelancers, whatever you want to call them. Of course, there are the usual salty comments, but the thing I was most surprised to read was a general collective consensus that it was good to not care about what your teammates are doing. And I'm paraphrasing here because I don't want anybody to think I'm specifically calling them out, but the discussion revolved around why only focusing on what you're doing is a better outcome. And listen, I somewhat agree with this. If you want to improve, then you need to reflect on your own plays and reconcile that there are elements of the game that are out of your control. But I only agree to a point. So let's discuss awareness in Salmon Run and why it's important to know what your teammates are doing. Before I start this video, I just want to mention two things. The first is that every clip in here is from a recent rotation in which I only played Freelance. All the clips are Freelance only, and I went from EVP 400 to 999 without a single loss. The other thing is that to go along with this video, there will be notes on every single piece of footage I use. There is a Google Doc attached that you can read that details why I chose certain clips for certain parts of the video. This video took me a long time to write and then put together and edit. It's actually my favourite video I've ever done, and I feel like that is because every clip is discussed further. I'd recommend reading the Google Doc whilst watching the video so you can really understand the points I'm trying to make, but it isn't required. If you don't want to, that's fine. The video explains everything in a depth that I'm happy with. The doc is just for extras. I hope you enjoy the video. Solo queue. I think one of the best things you can do to improve your mentality with any multiplayer game, not just Salmon Run, is to accept that you are dependent on teammates. PvP and PvE solo queues are similar in the sense that you'll be randomly allocated players. Sometimes it's skill-based matchmaking, other times it's not. If you can't accept this element, then maybe it's time to ask yourself if team-based multiplayer games are the right game for you. It's a core component of Splatoon overall. You're expected to work with these players. Fighting against this will only serve problems for yourself. What goes along with the aforementioned is that there is a certain spice, shall we say, that goes along with matching with random players. I've made quite a few different videos about this, so I won't go into too much depth about that here, but the reason I mention it is that in terms of awareness, it's important to know what your teammates are doing and subsequently what you can trust them to do. I think that ignoring your teammates and only focusing on yourself will not only lend itself to quite a selfish playstyle, but also make it really difficult to work with those teammates. But for the first part of this video's sake, let's say you only focus on what you are doing. Let's ignore your teammates and concentrate solely on you, the main character, the best player in the world, the expert, you know, the player that never makes a mistake and has to carry everybody else in every game they play. You know, the player in the comment section of every one of my videos complaining about freelancers. Alright, I'll stop that bit now, but you get the point. So if it's only you and you don't care about your teammates, then what do we need to do? Well, we need to single-handedly slay all the bosses and lessers on the field at the corresponding times that they spawn. Do you know what times they spawn? Make sure that your teammates help you as little as possible, because they're irrelevant, right? Then you need to throw the eggs back to deposit them. Whilst doing all of this, you need to maintain your safety and not get splattered. You also need to have strict ink tank management, being able to manage the enemies and the eggs. The higher the hazard, the more stressful this becomes, with hazard level max needing 97 eggs minimum across 3 waves. There are also 97 bosses that spawn overall at hazard level max across all 3 waves. Are you really going to manage this all by yourself? Of course you're not, it's a team game. Otherwise we would have single player Salmon Run. The game expects 4 of you to be working together, which is why it feels so hard when just one player disconnects. And so naturally, in a team game, what your teammates do and what they don't do is equally important when dealing with awareness. If you want competition, then a team-based PvE mode isn't where you should be. The idea that you should only focus on yourself is not what I'd recommend. You can't control your teammates, but you can help them. You can have good awareness so you can work with them, not against them. But what does having good awareness actually look like? The UI. Awareness can be fundamentally broken down into the simple learned skill of knowledge or understanding of a situation. Awareness doesn't come easily, and some players naturally have a better disposition for it. It's quite daunting at first, being expected to keep track of everything, everyone, and every task, but awareness comes with experience and is integral when making decisions about bosses, weapon roles, objectives, and task management, things of that nature. Every action has a consequence, good or bad. Being aware of the outcome of your action is another fundamental part of awareness in Salmon Run. For example, choosing to leave a boss alive has consequences. Are you aware enough to recognise those risks? Have you ever taken a moment to look at the different elements of the game? I know a lot of people only listen to my videos, but I'd encourage you to watch this part if you aren't already. The entire screen has been blacked out except for me, as a way to show you that only focusing on yourself will tell you nothing about the larger picture. I suppose you could say this about everything in life, but this is Salmon Tube, not Philosophy Tube, so I'll try to stay on point. The easiest, quickest way to improve awareness in Salmon Run is to take note of all the things happening in front of you. And I know that sounds absolutely insane in a way. I mean, of course you're seeing this, but are you really acknowledging everything? Let's start with the top left corner of the screen and the timer. I'm sure you know you're on a time limit, but how often do you look at the time? In my personal gameplay, I view Salmon Run as a time-orientated mode. Everything in this mode can be measured in time, and the countdown from start to finish is the critical aspect of this mode. Ultimately, if you don't reach quota in the allocated time, you lose, so you're incentivized to work fast and under pressure. Every wave is 100 seconds long, and the only way to pass is to reach quota before that time is finished. There is no way to stop the time or to give yourself more time, so you're really stuck with this strict limitation that this game sets for you. I want to really impress upon you that this is a hard rule that has no exceptions and no workaround. You have 100 seconds every wave without fail. What you then choose to do with that time is up to you. The reason I mention the timer first is because having awareness of the amount of time left in a wave will influence your decision making, and I think on some level you probably won't even realise that it does. The wave is displayed above and the timer is displayed on a black bar with white text, but when the timer hits 30 seconds, this will change if you haven't met quota. It will start to flash orange and the text below will become yellow. This is trying to get your attention and tell you that quota hasn't been met yet. Your quota is displayed next to the timer, meaning that looking at the timer will also force you to acknowledge the quota and how many eggs you have left until you reach it. Your quota is also indicative of the wave that you're on. When there's 10 seconds left, the screen displays a countdown that covers the majority of the screen, which can suddenly make you acutely aware of the impending loss if you haven't paid any attention throughout the wave. Did you know the large numbers are coloured in a red/orange if you haven't made quota, but change to green when you have? In addition, when you've reached the quota you need, the bar returns to black, and every further egg that is then deposited causes sparks to fly around the numbers, which is a nice way of telling you that you're actually overachieving. In addition, the text changes and it now reads quota met. When the timer reaches 0, you're rewarded with the news that you passed the wave. Below the timer are the icons that represent you and your free teammates. In Freelance, the order is not representative of who the host is, only in squad games, but nevertheless, you will have the same position for all 3 waves. The host of the room is randomly chosen. Displayed on the Inkling and Octolings are the weapons you have, which change each wave. Throughout the wave, the icons will change depending on certain actions, and the two most important ones are whether you're carrying an egg or whether you've been splatted or not. The bar starts black but will flash orange when someone is taken down by an enemy. The player's icon will go black and grey and display a cross. If there is only one person left standing, text will appear on the screen. One player left. This goes away as soon as another player is revived. The bar will stay flashing orange until everybody has been revived. It's worth mentioning that if a player disconnects during the game, the bar will consistently flash orange as the game recognises that there is a player missing. In the event of a DC, the quota is reduced, but the difficulty isn't. This is another way that the game punishes you if you don't choose to work as a squad. And lastly, just under the quota will be a banner that repeatedly flashes throughout the wave. Another black bar, but with orange text, and it reads Boss Salmonid Alert. This is the way the game explicitly tells you that it is a time-based mode. Every time a new boss spawns, this banner appears. There are exceptions to this. Mothership, Gorillas, Sea King, Tornado, Rush and Mudmouth waves will not display this message, and the message does not include lesser salmonids. At lower hazards, the notification is infrequent. At hazard level max, it may as well never leave the screen, as the boss spawns are very frequent up until a set time. Time, again, we keep coming back to time. All boss spawns are set on a timer and they don't deviate from this. Even in waves like Rush, there are set times for the way the Rush targets a certain player. I have made a couple of videos on boss mechanics and management and a video on how Rush works, so I'd really recommend viewing them for more in-depth information. But in regards to awareness, all bosses spawn on set times, meaning that you're forced to keep up pace with those spawns. The quota you have to meet changes depending on the hazard of your lobby. The highest quota is a wave 1 quota of 30. Again, the timer does not stop, and there is no way to prevent the game from spawning more bosses. The clock ticks down, the bosses spawn at the set times, and this banner will continue to flash. At every difficulty, the last boss spawns at 28 seconds remaining. After that, only lessers spawn. I will leave diagrams and sources in the description should you want to learn a bit more about how the bosses work and how they function in this game. Awareness in Salmon Run is quite a broad, loosely defined term. So before I go further, I want to make the point that these mechanics, the timer, the quota, the players and the boss spawn notification are the most critical aspects of Salmon Run, and your awareness of the game can be greatly improved if you just start taking note of these things. It really is kind of simple in a way, because being aware of these things means that you'll start making better decisions and not get blindsided. The best example I can give of this is when there's only 10 seconds remaining and all of your teammates start using their specials. This is the biggest indicator that those players have not taken any notice of the timer, quota and boss spawns throughout a wave. If I see you do this, this tells me you're lacking awareness, because what will a special in the last 10 seconds achieve? Had you noticed that quota was lacking at the 30-second mark when the bar starts flashing orange, you might have thought that a special could help then. At 10 seconds left, if you're not running eggs, you're not helping, you're wasting time, which you just don't have much left of. So I'm not saying don't use specials, I'm saying that had you noticed these problems earlier, you might not be panicking and using specials suboptimally. At the end of all of this, quota is the only way to pass the wave. If you don't reach it, you fail. I often talk about how the game doesn't teach you certain things, and whilst this is certainly true and something that I will touch on in the latter half of this video, everything I've told you so far has been indicated on your screen by the game. You can't tell me you didn't see the quota or the time left or the players alive when it is very clearly pointed out to you throughout every single wave. In the top right corner, the game tells you what special you have, how many you have left and how to use them. The icon constantly flashes. You get 2, and when you use one, the special meter runs down and resets, displaying a message that it's ready to be used again. When your second special is used, the icon remains, but it is now blacked out and empty, a sign that you've got none left. It goes without saying that you only get 2 specials per game, with an extra special being given to you for the extra waves, and an extra 2 for triumvirate fights. The game unfortunately does not inform you of what specials your teammates have and how many they have left. You will need to look for clues within the game. I say clues, but this is just another example of awareness. Specials usually make loud noises, explosions, or have huge area of effects, so when your teammates use them, you should be able to see it. Making note of what special they have, how many times they've used it, it's quite important, as you can then make judgments on whether yours is needed at that moment. You'll often see players holding on to them for wave 3. For some reason, I genuinely don't know where this mentality stemmed from, but between 4 of you, you have 8 specials for 3 waves. Making note of whether your teammates have used theirs is helpful for strategic planning. Lastly, you have a D-pad in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen with indications on how to use callouts, this way and booyah. In all honesty, they're pretty much useless in Freelance. If your teammates aren't looking at the timer, do you think they'll look at your callout? In the rare event that they do, the callouts are useful for letting them know very minor things, but I would say that it really is hit and miss whether you'll get any use out of these. I do think they're worth using. If you need help, it is worth pressing this way. When you've been splattered, this changes to help, and again, you should use this to let your teammates know that you're down. Overusing these callouts will likely cause your teammates to ignore further ones. The callouts are worth using, but just don't count on your teammates to respond. However, you, watching this video, should take note of when they're used. This will make you a better teammate. You can tell pretty quickly when you have a teammate that is using them for attention or just for no reason, but if you can't see what your teammates are doing, then it's worth keeping an eye out for when they do use the callouts, especially help. You can respond to them by going to revive them or by helping them out. They may be calling for backup or telling you where there are lots of eggs or where the new spawns are coming from. Don't instinctively ignore them because you think they're being used wrong. They might not be as experienced as you and they may be struggling with enemies. In the first instance, it's always better to be a good teammate than a jaded one. The final thing I want to discuss in this section is sound. The sound of the game has been deliberately curated for Salmon Run. I think it goes without saying how important sound and music is to Splatoon overall, and it's something that really makes the series stand out. I won't go into too much depth with the music, except I want to point out the specific track, Frothy Waters. It plays during some night waves, Seeking, Mothership, Mudmouth and Tornado. The reason I want to point out this track is to show you the small ways that the game is trying to tell you something. The unique time signature of this song changes very frequently, starting off at a 4/4 but subsequently adding extra beats and causing the timing to change. This makes the song sound discordant, erratic, and signifies a certain urgency to the player. The track doesn't repeat, meaning that you can use parts of the song to estimate how long you have left in a wave. I am not a music nerd, so again, a couple of links in the description with more information on the uniqueness of this track. But what I will say is that having the music on during the game allows me to know how much time is left in those particular waves. At 100 seconds long, no part of that song repeats itself. In addition to the music, the game has many sounds. To the new player, it's probably too much. All the bosses have noises, the egg throwing and depositing has noises, the players have noises, the boss spawning notification has a noise, the weapons and the bombs and the specials have noises. There is a lot. If you play without sound, you are giving yourself quite a substantial disadvantage and one that will not help you if you already struggle with awareness. Of particular note are the boss sounds, as each of them have very specific, different sound cues. These can inform you when they are close to you, when their attack cycle starts, and when they're defeated. Playing around the sounds of the game is just as important as playing around the visuals. They're clues and pointers about how well you're doing and can usually reveal some information to you. How to improve your awareness. The UI of the game can appear overwhelming at first. If you're newer, don't sweat it so much. You'll likely not be able to tell what the best play is depending on certain situations. For more experienced players, the risks then turn into becoming jaded or playing on autopilot, which I'm totally guilty of myself. And this is where I think the original comment stems from. Not caring what your teammates are doing sounds jaded. It sounds like you have no faith in them or think that they're not important. In my experience, the best thing you can do in Salmon Run at all times is to help your teammates. There is no downside to this. Having awareness of what is going on means that you can find different ways to help them. And I think this is something that truly does come from time spent playing the game. I can't just give you obvious examples. It's all well and good saying that a good player with good awareness knows to shoot down snatchers as they come over the basket, but did you pay attention to where the snatchers were spawning as you slayed the first few bosses? Did you make a strategic decision to avoid luring, slay earlier and leave the eggs for snatchers so you can better spend time elsewhere? Did you think about your weapon, your teammates and their ink economy? In a multifactorial game like Salmon Run, there isn't one right way to play, but there are ways that improve outcomes and get you better scores. There is objectively better decision making, but this won't come to you quickly. Having awareness of what your teammates are doing will help you improve this skill. When I see people complaining about their teammates, I often think to myself, well, what did you do to help them? There are games where you will have your teammates repeatedly go down, and there are many different reasons why this happens. But one reason may be that you're not helping them as much as you could be. They could be struggling because they're overextending, or their position is poor, or their weapon understanding is poor, and yeah, that is their fault if you want to be a dick about it. But you can make it better for them and yourself by going to help them. You need to be aware of what your teammates are doing to fully get the most out of this game. Your teammate repeatedly going down isn't fun, I know, but being a player down is arguably worse. The reason I spent part of this video going into depth explaining the UI and what certain mechanics means is that they will affect the decisions you make. Awareness is intrinsically linked to decision making. Not being aware of what's going on in the game will lead to poor awareness and ends with worse outcomes. How can you make the decision to play aggressively if you're not aware that two of your teammates are down and the quota is quite far from being met? Being aware that you need to revive your teammates and focus on quota with a bit more urgency is what should be done, but this requires you to actively make that decision based on the current situation. If you're the type of player that thinks not caring what your teammates are doing is the way you should play and that you should do everything yourself, then here is where you'll tend to fail. Individualism in a team-based game will serve you little reward. If Salmon Run could be done independently, trust me, I'd have made guides about it, but the game is specifically built around the idea of teamwork. So, how do you make your team work? Well, awareness of what your comp is and who has what weapon is the first thing you should think about. What does your weapon do better than the others? Who has the best DPS? Who has the best paint? Who has the best mobility? What can you trust your teammates to do? During the course of Wave 1, you'll be able to somewhat gauge what your teammates are good at and maybe not so good at. I've tuned this skill so much so that I can estimate with very good accuracy whether I'm going to have a good time or a rough time within 30 seconds of Wave 1. And that's because I am aware of what my teammates are doing. Are they maximizing their weapons, or are you going to have to try and carry the wave with a subpar weapon? What happens here is that I will then decide that I may need to use specials to manage this. If your teammates are not effective at slaying but are good at egg running, then you should flex to this position to cover them. But arguably more important is whether the inverse is true. Are they good at slaying and nobody is running eggs? There's no point all four of you being at the big shot cannon, because who is going to run the eggs? Who is going to manage the next cluster of spawns? In addition, if you're all in the same place, you're all so much more likely to have the game end in a catastrophic wipe. Your awareness is good if you could recognize that not all of you need to be doing the same thing. You can spot players who don't have good awareness is actually quite an easy tell. Aside from using their weapon in a way that is not super efficient, they also tend to double up on tasks with you. They see you use a special and immediately do the same thing for the exact same bosses. They see you collecting eggs and run to pick up the same ones instead of looking for eggs elsewhere. They see you trying to move away from splash damage and they follow you with their missiles, their aggro, leading bosses like eels towards you so you can't easily defeat them. This doesn't make me think poorly of them, it just tells me that they don't know as much as I do. Or my favourite one, where they don't run eggs at all throughout a wave because they think they don't have to. Or for real, actually, my true favourite one, where they stand in front of you to steal your boss kills instead of helping you take care of lessers or paint for you. You know the type of player that I'm talking about here, right? Their awareness is either so bad that they don't really think that they're being unproductive, or they think they're the main character and they truly don't care about their teammates. These small actions are ways I can tell what kind of teammates I have. And this works both ways too. I can equally tell when there's a player with good awareness. They're proactive, they're keen to help you, they recognise that you have a better weapon for a task and vice versa. They collect eggs when you use a special, etc. There's lots of different examples. The biggest tell is that they recognise the need you have. Is it paint? Is it DPS? Is it defensive? Do they need to take some pressure off of you? I love seeing a teammate help me out by removing steel eels chasing me, turning around scrappers for me, or shooting torpedoes down. That shows me that they care about winning the game or helping everyone and not just playing for themselves. Good awareness looks like a good teammate, and when Freelance is so unhinged with skill level, you can tell when you run into someone with really good or really poor awareness. It's genuinely like night and day. And that's fine. I assume it's the same if you're here watching this. You either know this stuff or you're keen to improve. Your teammates may not care so much, so the onus is on you to try and work around that. If you notice your teammates trying to steal boss kills from you or not helping the team, then the best thing I can recommend is to counteract this directly. You try and help them. Either way, quota has to be met. Who cares who gets the most boss kills? If they keep standing in front of you and blocking your shots, then take care of the lessers and the golden eggs. My point with this part is that you can do better than this. Fighting over the same task means that nobody wins, and being aware of the type of player you're matched with just means that you can play in a way that benefits them and subsequently benefits the entire squad. The idea that you shouldn't be paying attention to your teammates is so bizarre to me, because if you don't know what they're doing, how can you help them? Helping your teammates comes in all shapes and sizes. Another way is making sure that they stay active or that they're revived quickly if they go down. And to know this, you have to keep an eye on the top left-hand corner of your screen. Seeing how many players are active is paramount to your decision making. Do you have safety in numbers to potentially make risky plays? Or should you hang back, make sure everybody is revived and then continue? When looking here, you will also likely notice the time left and the quota needed. This will also influence your next decision. Ideally, you want to get to a point where you frequently monitor the time and the quota and the status of your teammates so that you know what you can do versus what you have to do. Oftentimes in Salmon Run, you will need to retreat to go to revive teammates. It's just the nature of the game. When somebody on your team goes down, the aggro of all of their bosses gets put on the next closest player. Not being aware of that may cause you to rapidly go down too. Then it becomes really hard to reverse the snowball that is about to happen. Taking aggro from other players because they are splatted means that you'll have a harder time surviving. This is the incentive to revive your downed teammate as soon as possible. Risk assessment is something that is involved in awareness. Once you start playing a lot, you'll know at what times bosses spawn and where on the map they'll spawn from. Each map has set spawn points, so being able to focus attention to these particular spots gives you vital information that can assist you in your decision making. Can you lure, or should you take care of those spawns in a more proactive manner? The second group of spawns are often the ones that I focus on, as I've seen that a lot of freelancers tend to tunnel vision the first group of spawns. Salmon Run isn't a game where you can only do one task at a time. You have to multitask, or at the very least be aware of the incoming spawns so you can switch up priorities before things start to overstay their welcome. This also includes the problem of tunnel vision, where you become solely focused on one thing for an extended length of time. It doesn't matter what it is, but when you only do one thing, you're neglecting everything else, and in my experience, it's really obvious when one player on the team isn't contributing. You can feel the pressure of somebody not slaying enough, somebody not painting enough, somebody not depositing enough eggs. And again, being aware of this means that you can work harder to make up for that deficit. This is where awareness benefits you more than anywhere else, in my opinion, because sometimes you'll notice that those with those high DPS weapons are not using them to control the spawns. Or you'll notice that the player with the best paint is just ignoring the fact that the map is green. It's in these situations that awareness leads to adaptability, and I've mentioned this before in other videos, but adaptability is the skill that wins you games. If you aren't aware that your teammates aren't fulfilling certain tasks, then how are you going to adapt to that? I wish I could say that everybody going into Freelance knew how to use their weapons properly, but often you'll just see players using weapons poorly. You'll see continuous flicking with Dynamo, half charges with Hydra, tap shots with E-liters, and people throwing lots of bombs when they have a blaster. And again, I don't think poorly of players who do this, it just gives me more information on what I should do next. And usually that means taking a more aggressive Slayer role, because if they're not keeping up with the flow of bosses and enemy spawns, then who will? This is when you should start thinking about specials and whether you can focus on achieving quota earlier so you can then prioritise slaying to keep the team safe. There are so many ways you can learn information just by observing what your teammates are doing, and in a game like Salmon Run, having more information will never be a bad thing. There is so much that goes into awareness as a skill, and this video could genuinely be double the length. Maybe one day I will come back and talk more about things like boss aggro and staying alive in regards to your team. But truthfully, I could talk about Freelance and Salmon Run all day because there is no right or wrong way to play. Every action has a reaction, and you'll learn the more you play which reactions are good and which aren't so good. Freelance in Salmon Run has a certain, I don't know what, about it. Whatever it is, I keep coming back to it, and so do your random teammates. Remember, there's no I in teammates, but you know what does have an I? Rachowski, that's right, there's actually 7 of them, so that means you need to subscribe with 7 accounts. Okay, thanks, bye.